Hey everybody, I will just share my screen real quick. Now, just to calm everybody down, you don't need to know probably anything before these classes. We will go over everything that you need to know to do this process. Of course, knowing Blender or Maya or those kind of not the CAD programs, but more the let's say the render programs, the movie programs, will give you more control over the mesh that you will create and to do it better. But for this class and to know a Substance Painter, you can you don't need to know anything. We'll just go over everything, and we'll also designate some times for a question, and you will have totally open channel to communicate with us. The benefits of Substance. This is already open scene. Let me just open a new one. Now, before I'm starting, I would go quite quickly over things. So I would not go and explain every step that I'm doing, because this is just to give you it's kind of a teaser for what Substance can do. But later on, when you will have the video, you could kind of pause and see what I did, and you can play around. And you will also have this scene on the drive, waiting for you to kind of play around. Okay, so let me just open new scene. Save it first. Okay, so I'm opening the scene. First I need to bring my mesh or my object, and I will bring it on the low poly. It's basically the same mesh, and you can see I have on one side I have the UVs, the other side I have the model. Now, basically, Substance Painter is in some ways very similar to Photoshop. The logic, the layers, the ability to work with it, but it is on 3D, which also Photoshop offer lately to have 3D option. But you will see that Substance give things that Photoshop doesn't give, at least for the moment. So when we open our model, we can start immediately by painting on it. So the most basic thing we can do is we can start and paint. So this is my layer here, and I will just select maybe some other color, and I can start and just 3D paint on it. I'm not going to give a lot of effort, but you would see you can just go on and paint, and this is basically like Photoshop in a 3D environment. Now I can of course add another one for painting, and I can change the color, and you can see that we can just go only with these basic tools. We can go and do quite interesting things to your own models. Now the other thing we can do, we can, instead of paint, we can actually bring pre-made textures, or even some local textures. So now I created, let's say, a bucket layer, which this kind of, it's not a paintable layer, it's more layers that I can plug materials. And I will go over everything in a later stage, how to do all the steps, but just to show the principles, I can bring any texture that I want. I can put it in under, and you can see I can have pre-made textures, which I don't have right now at the moment with me, but this way it gives very comfortable way to see how your texture would look like in a 3D environment. Otherwise, before we had Substance, we needed actually to work with the side of the UV, so we needed to take it to Photoshop or some other program and kind of guess where everything goes when we are painting. Now, very cool thing is that, which it's very hard to do not in Substance. I will go back to my layer. I can create one line, and you can see through here, and it's a perfect line. Although if you would look at the UV space, you see the line started here and then jump to the top. But because I have this wonderful tool, I don't need to worry about how did I cut my UVs. So we can really have more control and more freedom when we work here. So this is the first thing that Substance offer us, which is to paint and draw and use textures in a 3D environment. And as you can see, it's quite straightforward and interesting. Now, let me just delete those. Okay, so the other wonderful thing that we have in Substance is that we can bring back details that we lost. So as you can see, this model is very low details. It's not very interesting, but we have to have it low poly because we want to bring it to a game or to an app or something like this, or maybe we just want to render the scene faster. Now we can fake all those details, and what I did behind the scene is that I have my high poly models coming from ZBrush, which is a modeling, more like organic modeling program. And the model, by the way, was around 4 million polys. So this is way too extreme to even to work in Maya. So what I can create, I can bring all the details that I have in this model into my project. The way I do it is I go to Bake Mesh Maps, and for start I will cancel all of those. And again, we'll go into depth in the next classes. But for now, I just would like to use the normals. I would start with some generous settings. And I will plug my high poly model. Okay, so now I will just bake it. And it takes a little while. Depends on your computer to get back all the details. Okay, so I guess most of you noticed that now I have way more details. My object looks actually very interesting. It's worth mentioning that it's all fake. There is no additive mesh here, no geometry, anything. It's just a fake. It's a normal. It's called normal map. If you've been around 3D, you kind of know what is normal map. But if not, it's basically it's some kind. It's a special file that creates some kind of illusion of depth. But this is just illusion that goes with the light. That's why you can see all those details. Okay, so we saw that it can add geometry. The other thing that baking can do is that it can analyze the object in a 3D sphere, create 2D maps for this analyze, and then we can use those maps later on. Now I will first bake, because I'm sure it was not very clear, this sentence. But I will first bake, and then we will see what it actually give us. So I will go back to bake the rest of my maps. Again, it takes a while, depends on the computer, or also on the settings. Okay. Soon enough, it will finish.
We'll just add that at home this might take a lot longer, but you'll see on your computers. Yeah.
Okay. So we didn't get, it didn't look like we got anything out of those maps, but let's go over them very quick just to get the idea. So we have the ambient occlusion map, which is also people who worked in 3D would kind of be familiar with this. It's more like darken the cavities. So wherever it's a bit deeper or two objects are close to each other, it would be darker. And it's kind of, in 3D rendering, it gives more realistic feeling when it comes to corner and places like this. The next map we have, it's the curvature. This is baked from the high poly. It takes all the curvature where it's in, where it's out. So inward would be very black, outward would be white, and grayscale in the middle. Then we have the position, which means Substance try to understand what is the position of this character according to the world. And there are application for this. So it knows that this is down, this is up, left and right. Then we have the thickness. And the thickness is, if you are familiar with subsurface scattering or any skin material, you know that whenever the skin is thinner, it should emit more light through it. So this is a map that actually going through the model and checking out where is thin and where is thick. So this is our thickness. So those are the map that we are using. Now, just to show why do we actually need those maps. Let me go back to the material and let me show you cool things that that Substance have. So Substance have a lot of inventory or resources, and they're all great. There is no shame to use them. You can create your own, obviously, in Photoshop or some other program. So we have granges and alphas and procedural. We will go through most of them, but just to kind of play around, we can start with, we have material. So material is just one layer of material that you can utilize a bit, and you can use it as a kind of a start position for your start position for your work. Let me just see if I can show you only the head. Okay. So we have a lot of materials. I will obviously won't go through all of them, but we can just I just throw it on the skin, and you can say we have some metal we can start with. There are also some other stuff which I'm not sure what are they. We have we can have a rust if you want to start from rust, and so on. You could it's basically self-explanatory. You could try it yourself. It's basically to just draw on the character. But then we have smart materials. Now, smart material is basically something that you create by yourself. But this was created by the people from Substance, and they just gave few nice materials. It's not a unique one-layer material. It's a complex setup of many layers. We can just try. I don't know. We can try. Let's say the bronze. Okay, so it's you can see it's already. You can see that the bronze is already giving us something very, very maybe almost close to finish. Sometime it depends on what you are being asked to do or what you want to achieve. But let me show you what happens if we put the same material, bronze, but we don't have all the channels that we baked. I will just for a moment get rid of all the channels, and you can see that we still have the normals, we still have the details, but we lost all the interesting part that happened on the edges and in the cavities. And if I will bring back now the maps, you will see they will start to appear, all of those things. So this is our map. So Substance knows, and we will see how to do it by ourselves, not with a preset. Substance knows to use all the details that we baked and to do for us majority of the work. It will find the cavities, it will find the edges, and we could come to a very interesting result with very minimal effort, I would say, definitely compared to how it used to be before. Well, this is just another, maybe not the best example. You can see here that Substance recognized that the cheeks are a bit out, so they will be more worn out, and the nose, but then around the eyes it will be a bit more dirty because it's inside. Now just to show you the difference, you can see that this material is made from, so I'll just delete those not to confuse. You can see that it's made from 4 layers. So the first layer would be the metal, then it will be paint. Then on top of the paint, we will add some masking, which we will use the maps for this. And then we can use a bit of rust. So it starts with a full layer rust, and then we can kind of mask it. And if you know Photoshop, the shortcuts are very similar, and the masking system is similar. So this is my mask here. And then another layer of sharpening, which doesn't do much. Now, just in case you want to also follow while I'm speaking, to navigate the scene, what I'm doing here, in, out, if you don't know 3D, it's the same like Maya, which is basically clicking Alt and using all the 3 mouse buttons. The middle mouse, the left and the right, and each one gives you different kind of, so the middle mouse will be panning, and then the right one will be zooming, and then the left will be rotating. So just if you didn't know it, that's how you navigate. It's quite industry standard as far as I'm aware of. So yeah, so we saw that Substance gives us the ability to paint, the ability to add minor details, small details that actually makes our object more interesting. And it can give us maps that we can bake map from the high poly version, or even in some case from the normal map. So if you got a model with a normal map, you can get all the other maps from the normal map, which has happened sometimes. You get the model with from ZBrush, and ZBrush also provide normal map. So you can also use that to bake the rest of the maps. Now, where it gets a bit more complicated, but that's what gives us this freedom, because you can see that whenever I use material, I don't control only the colors. So if we will work on Photoshop and we paint the colors, we need to paint the color, and then we need to paint some specularity, and we need to paint some, it depends on our material, some other channels. But here you can see I'm getting everything while I'm working. So let me just show you the channels that I have right now in the setup. So now pressing C, and you can see this is my mask. Okay, this will change on every layer that I would be, because it's different mask. Then the next one would be the color. So this is the color. If you will work on Photoshop, we will need to take out map like this of color. This would be, let's say, the presentation of how it will look on Photoshop. Then we have the metallic, and you can see we get a metallic map, and we have the roughness map, and we'll go into this tomorrow probably, all the concept of PBR materials. Then we have the normal map and height, which we didn't use, so we have nothing, and we have also the normal plus height together. So this is what will come out of the program, and we'll go to Maya, Blender, Unity, any program that accepts this kind of maps. So yeah, so this thing makes it a bit complicated, because now we kind of need to, every time we do something, we need to control all the maps. So if we just turn this one off for a second. And let's create, okay, so I created new fill layer. Okay, so you can see here I have all this, what I showed you. I have the color, the metal, the roughness, and the height. So to start, a very basic material. I see it's going to be cluttered. Okay, so I can select the color, then I can decide how metallic I want it. So then I can create the amount of metalness, and then I can control the roughness. So basically with these three, let's say with the metallic and the roughness, this is how we create the character of our material. Now, just as a side note, if you don't have metal in the material, don't use metallic, although it looks sometimes very nice for other purposes. But it's starting to be weird when you bring it to other programs. Now the height is kind of hard to show it because if I would show the height, you will see no difference because it's relative always. But like Photoshop, I can take this layer and I can mask it. So I can put like a black mask, which means I'm starting with nothing, or I can put white mask, which means I'm starting from everything and painting out stuff. But let's start with the black. And the other thing we have here is smart masks. Now every mask that you see here, like with a smart material, you could create by yourself. But this is some presets to start with, and also maybe to understand. It's really helped to reverse engineer a lot of things to kind of understand what the artist did and maybe to replicate it. So let's just throw one of those. And now you can see it's a weird mask, but okay, it's good enough for the example. But now you can see if I would go to my height, you can see now you would see a different. Now the height will appear or not appear, because we limit it to a very specific area. Otherwise, everything looks higher. Now I can also add, on top of it, I can add some paint, and like Photoshop, black is no and white is yes. So if I'm on, right now I'm on white, so now I can just keep on painting whatever I want. I can also go to my brushes and maybe choose some other brush just to show that it's possible. So I can continue and work. So I can paint directly on a paint layer, or I can paint actually on a mask. So I can start from something which is generic, goes through the whole mesh, and then I can mask it and start to work on it. Now, of course, I have a lot of options. I can, we can use a little bit of opacity, and we can also hide it if we don't like it and try again and still have it in the background. So yeah, now this I will go very briefly. It's a bit confusing and we'll go very slowly, but now you can see on my layers, this is where it gets even more complicated. You can see that on my layer I have base color, but I have also other options. So we can actually go into every channel and play with the specifics of this channel. So for example, if I go on the color, base color, I can go on the opacity, but you see that the color disappeared, but the rest of the material stayed the same. Okay, but I can also go to my metallic. I don't even know if I have metallic in this material, but you can see now I don't have metallic anymore. And the same can be with the roughness, which in this case is not very visible. But yeah, this is what makes this program very, very powerful, but in the same time a bit confusing till you get the point, is that it's like taking a regular Photoshop and in the same time work on 4 different files. But fear not, we will go slowly into this kind of instead of this kind of complications. So yeah, let's try to just create something very quickly together. Okay, so I will delete this one, and I would go to the materials and start with maybe iron. Let's go with iron raw. So I have this iron raw. This is not what I wanted. Sorry. I wanted this one. Okay, so we have the iron raw, which is a bit, it's doing us a little bit of issues because of the UVs. I'll just get rid of this. Okay, so now we are back with the iron. So we have this iron, which is a little bit with a character, and we wanted to make it a bit more interesting. So let's say everything which is outward would be more shiny and worn out because people touch it and so forth. So let's put some, just for the example. Let's see. Okay, let's try this. It's not correct, but let's try this. Okay, so we didn't do basically anything. We just make everything very shiny. So now, to get this, I would actually go to the smart masks. And in general, I usually start to work with the pre-made stuff, except if it's not exist. I just start with the pre-made and I adjust it and build on top of it. So it saves some time, and I don't see a reason, especially when you work in the industry, there is no reason to waste time. So let's look for some edge. Where is that? Okay, let's do this one, or maybe this one is better. So let's put this one on top. And you can see what we got is we started from this metal, which already looks quite nice, can be adjusted obviously, and we give some kind of more highlight when it's kind of makes sense. Now, obviously, if you do something which is supposed to be in higher level of art, you could come into this mask and add some paint layer. Let's choose different brush. And then you can work on top of it and decide that in some places you want more or less, delete out stuff, and so on. So it's not the end. You don't need to stop here. It's actually better not to stop in this stage, but it's a good start. And definitely when you start working with Substance, it's very nice to start, because now you can actually go into what they create as a preset, and you can look through it and see what they choose to do, and it's kind of giving you a hint of how these things are working if you don't remember everything by heart. So since we are here in the brushes, you can see you have very big collection of brushes, which I will not go through, but feel free, if you have the program installed, feel free just to start and paint with them. So yeah, we saw that we can fairly quick, we could start and create, we could create interesting things. We can use the maps that we baked in advance. We can use the pre-made materials, and then we can put on top of them even more and make them more elaborate. Okay, the other thing that Substance offers us, which is really great if you are just working on Substance and you don't have knowledge with other programs, is the ability even to render our scene. So I press F10 if somebody is interested, and why? Okay, so we can start with creating. It's good to show for a client or even for a final product. You don't need to bring it to any other program. You can get fairly good rendering engine into Substance. It does better PBR materials more than skin and this kind of materials, but you know, it's still very powerful. Now you can also change the environment, and you can upload your own environment, and you can get very nice render for a product shot or for to show your work or for a portfolio and stuff like this. We can also play with the camera, so we can have different angle of the camera. We can also have some focal distance. Okay, I'm not going too deep into it, and some effects that can play around. We are usually rendering in Maya, so we don't use much of the render engine. We use it more to show clients the object, the model, and to get the proof. But there are some more options here which we'll go through in a later stage. We also have the shader, and yeah, this is basically most of the things that you can do in Substance inside of the program. Now, the last thing, and maybe the most important thing, to go back, I just press F9. Now you have also this kind of icon here that you can use if you don't remember. The last thing we can do is we can export all of those maps. So it's not very relevant now, but I will just show it. So we are complete all the sides of Substance. But you can see we have this this window, and then we have all of those presets, and you can also create your own, which is presets that are already adapted to industry programs that are used in the industry. For example, Arnold Render, and we have Unity and Maxwell and so forth, V-Ray, and you can also create your own. So it looks a bit scary here, and we will go through this later on. So I would say this is basically generally, I don't know, in a very, very quick and confusing way, going over the whole application, the whole Substance app. Now, if anybody have a question, or if Nadav wants to add something. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, I skipped that. Okay, so a bit of fun stuff, in case that you just want to play around. So I will just create paint layer, and yeah, this I skipped that somehow. So we have what's called the particle system. It's really cool. It's a really cool system, and it's basically since Substance knows that it's a 3D object, it also knows how to behave. So we have all of those kind of particles. So let's start with maybe if we would like to have some kind of rust, like edges of rust. So I have this brush, and you can see I'm painting, and Substance knows to make it leak. Let me just do some changes. Particle life. And you can see I will paint it here. You can see it knows how to drape because it's a 3D object. So instead of using brush and trying to imitate all of those things, you could use this brush, and it will give you a very good start that you can put on top of it. Of course, we could play with the opacity to create a little bit more, maybe. So when we paint twice, we get a little bit variation of color. And yeah, it's not the best settings because, as you can see, it's a lot of setting to go through, and we will not do it now. But let's say another brush that we have, which is cracks. Okay, I will change the color probably. Something a bit more visible. You see, we can create cracks in the whole model. I'll create another one. And we have, I don't know, fresco. It's very small. I can probably scale it up. Sometimes it's buggy. Okay, obviously we need to do some refine the brush, but in this matter we have the rain. And we have some others. You can try it yourself, but Now this is, for example, I use quite often when I want to do marble, so it gives me the kind of natural vein. Usually it needs to be adjusted better, but yeah, you can see where the potential. Okay, broken glass. Now another thing that we have is elaborate brushes, and I will show you what I mean. And this is also useful. It's very limited, but it's when you need it, it's very nice to have it. Okay. So yeah, every version they come out with a new of those things, but I mean, if you need the stitches, I'll just maybe so you can have stitches. Looks a bit scary, a bit. So yeah, we have brushes of stitches. We have, if you're into sewing, again I will. So we can have this kind of, I think it's called overlock, but I'm not sure. And weld, we have zipper. Doesn't look so great, the zipper. And some other things. We have leaves, we have colors, we have even screws that we can put. But that's it. There is not, as far as I know, there is not much that we can do with those brushes. They can be adjusted a bit, but okay, this is somebody walks on his head. Yeah, okay. Now I think we kind of went through everything.